One of the best baits that we fish with through winter is the humble slice of bread. Let's face it, you know, we're not going to get many baits that are cheaper and easier to access and keep than a simple loaf of bread. And that's what I'm actually here doing today. I'm here at this fantastic commercial fishery where I've got plenty of bread here, but I've only really used probably 2 slices all day. And what I'm going to do in this video is just share with you how I'm actually mounting this bait actually onto the hair rig. I just want to show you the different ways in which you can actually present your hook bait when you're fishing with bread. So kit wise, it's very simple. All I've got here in a tray here is I've got a baiting needle there, and that's because I mount my hair rigs. I mount the bread onto the hair with a speed stop, so you need a baiting needle that's going to allow you to do that. And the other thing you need is some sort of a punch or a bait punch. There are loads out there, lots of different brands produce these. This particular one is a Matrix one, and it's actually 10 millimeter in diameter, and that's just going to allow me to punch out, as you can see, nice little discs of bread. And that's exactly what I'm going to be using. So all I've got here is I've got a hair rig here, as you can see, with a speed stop, and what I'm going to do is just punch out a couple of discs of bread. There we go. So all I'll do down is pop that down, get my baiting needle, put my baiting needle into the speed stop, then I can push the speed stop into the bread like so, push it through, and then the speed stop opens out, and that keeps your bread on the hook. And as you can imagine, with the length of the hair that you decide to fish with, that can determine how many discs of bread you actually put on the hair. So, you know, as you'd expect, if you're fishing for fish of any size, any stamp, then you might want to fish with, say, 6mm discs on a shorter hair, two discs, for example. Or you want to fish for bigger fish, be much more selective. You can use a bigger diameter punch like I've got here, and you could have a longer hair that may allow you to put 3 or 4, even 5 discs on. So you've got a lot of flexibility there. Now, the one thing you've got to remember is that with bread in its current state like that, should float, and this allows you to fish with a bait off the bottom, and that's what we call popped up bread. It's just like what you see anglers doing with the pole, where they're dobbing around looking for fish that are up in the water. And so what you need to remember is that if you're wanting to fish with popped up bread, you've got to make sure that the bread is still going to pop up once it's on your hair rig. It's all right saying the bread floats as it is. If I get a disc on its own there, that's a punched disc there, if I just pop that in the water, as you can see there, it floats. However, when it's on a hair rig, you're putting some line through it, you're putting a speed stop on it, and you're actually putting the weight of the hook as well. So you might find that your hook, or your choice of hook, the size of hook and the thickness of that hook may be too heavy for the bread to pop up. And it's a bit of a balancing act, if that's the kind of presentation you're after. So as you can see, I've got 2 discs on there now. That's a size 14 hook. If I pop that into the water, there we go. As you can see, that bread is floating. So when I cast this out, this hook length is 30 centimeters long. When I cast out, the bomb will hit the bottom, and then this bread will be popped up. As you can see, it'll be popped up 30 centimeters off the bottom of the lake, and it'll just stay there suspended. And that can be a great way of just targeting fish that are up in the water. And you could fish with a longer hook length than that if you think the fish are higher in the water, or you could obviously reduce it as well. Now, the other thing that you've got about bread is that the thing that's keeping this bread floating is the actual air within the bread. So you can change the presentation of that by taking the air out of the bread. Now, as you can see, that bread there has only been in the water 15-20 seconds, and you can see how much it's swollen up, and it's actually almost masked the point of the hook. So that's something that you might want to take into consideration, because the last thing you want is for the point of the hook to be masked by the size of the discs that you're using. So it's a trial and error thing, but it's something that you can play around with at home. You don't have to be on the bank to do this. You could do this in your kitchen. Just get your choice of hook, the choice of the style of hair rig that you use, the type of bread that you decide to use, and just punch some different discs out and see how they perform with your hair rig choice. Now, what we can also do is change the presentation and turn it into a bottom bait. So if you suddenly want to present your bait on the bottom, then what we can do is, again, if I punch out 2 discs like so, what I can do is I can actually squeeze the air out of that. You can either press that against your hand if you wish, and just by pressing the plunger at the top there, what that's doing is pushing the bread down against your hand. Could do it against the bait box if you wish. And then what we've actually done there is, by doing that, you're actually squeezing the air out of the bread. So if I put those discs on there now, as you can see, the discs are much flatter, much narrower now, because we've compacted them. So the herring's going to look as though it's longer now. There we go. So you've still got exactly the same diameter discs on there, but because you've taken all the air out of there, they're much narrower. When I drop this in the water, there you go, it sinks right to the bottom. So if you suddenly decide you want to present bread but on the bottom, then you've got the choice of doing that. You can turn it into a bottom bait. You've got lots of different options here. It's a fantastic way of fishing, you know, and you can target fish up in the water on these lakes, or if you think they are down on the bottom, then you've also got that versatility as well, with incredibly simple tools on your side tray. And the final thing that you can do, and this is something I've definitely seen work this winter, and that is add some sort of flavouring or colour to your bread. The great thing with bread is it soaks in. So you know, it soaks water in, so it will soak in any sort of glugs or liquids or any sort of flavours you want to put on there. This one's the haze, so it's the Power Scope X flavour. It's bright yellow, as you can see, almost the same colour as sweet corn, which is what we use a lot of at this time of year on these lakes. So it's got the flavour, it's got the colour, and this is a haze, so that basically means that it's going to ooze off some flavour and some colouring within the water as well, so you're adding even more attraction. If I mean, you can see there now how that can really stand out, especially in clear water, just like what we get at this time of year. And if I drop that into the water, you're going to see the first thing that's happened, that I will tell you about in a moment, is it's changed the bread, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. And this is actually, it's got all the yellow oozing off it. You're not going to be able to see it really clearly on here, but it's got, hence the name, haze. It's got a yellow haze around it, and sometimes that added bit of attraction can catch you some extra fish. But one thing you've got to remember, and that is that whenever you're adding any sort of a flavouring or colouring to your bread, what you've got to remember is it's actually changing the bread. So you'll find that depending on the type of flavouring and the colouring that you're using, it could add weight to your bread, which is what usually happens. So you might find that if you're wanting to fish with the bread popped up, you might not be able to put too much flavour on it, because that may make it heavier, which means it's going to sink to the bottom. However, if you're fishing with a bottom bait, it doesn't matter, because it's still going to sink to the bottom anyway. And let's face it, you know, in winter especially, if something like adding a little bit of flavour or colouring or attraction to your hook bait is just going to catch you even just one extra fish, then sometimes that can make all the difference. I hope you've enjoyed this little bit of an insight into one of the ways that you can fish with bread this year. If you have, please give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to check out our online fishing courses for beginners and advanced anglers from some of the best anglers in the world at the website address below in the description. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.